So Piers Morgan had Kari on his show, and it got spicy. So they debated a number of different issues. Piers, to his credit, on the issue of whether or not Kari actually won the election that she lost. He goes, no, you lost. Also discussing whether or not Trump won. He was like, no, Trump lost. So they get into that. We're not going to rehash that. We've talked about that a million times. I think the court cases speak for themselves in terms of who actually won these elections. Okay, so, but I like this back and forth on guns. I find it interesting for a number of reasons. Now, Kari Lake, sort of like we just discussed Vivek Ramaswamy earlier, and I find him incredibly slippery, right? He's really good at communication. He's really good at dodging and shifting the conversation. And I think Kari Lake is similar. She was on TV forever, and she clearly has a presence and a charisma about herself. And Piers is going to try to bring some logic to her on the issue of gun reform, and let's see how that goes.
I'm not going to start lecturing you about guns. It's your country, your laws, your culture. I get all that. But there was another mass shooting this week, and it comes off the back of endless mass shootings, more this year already than any other recorded year, nearly 200, I think, now.
By the way, just to give a fact on that real quick, look at this. So this is actually 2021. There were 48,830 gun deaths in the U.S. The old number that we used to give was there's 32,000 gun deaths a year. That was back in like 2014, 33,594. We're all the way up to 48,830 gun deaths a year. That is an astonishing number. All right, let's continue.
Sort of scale and volume of these mass shootings seems to be getting worse and worse. What is the answer? I mean, what do you think can be done? Because 1 million new guns are sold every month. So the volume of guns in circulation exponentially increases. The power of them seems to be getting bigger. Young people seem to be suffering, in particular, a lot of mental health issues. And it's turning into this awful Groundhog Day cocktail of people apparently going mad and committing heinous mass shootings. What do you think the answer is?
Kind of here we are again, right?
Right.
And I think, I know you're a father and I'm a mother, and it's painful to see any loss of life, especially, you never expect your children to die before you do. And in some of these shootings, we've had children dying and adults dying. And we just had a car run down a bunch of people recently as well. We're not banning cars or attempting to ban cars.
Oh my God, the car argument is so frustrating. Oh my God, it's so frustrating. Holy shit. All right, let's see how he responds to it.
Some of these shootings, we've had children dying and adults dying. And we just had a car run down a bunch of people recently as well. We're not banning cars or attempting to ban cars.
You're regulating cars. Often,
we're regulating them from driving through crowds.
Well, no, but it's a very interesting piece by Nick Kristof in the New York Times a few years ago, comparing what happened actually with car regulation and comparing it to gun regulation. That cars used to kill a lot of people in America, going back 100 years when they first came along. And they brought in a series of regulations, from wearing seat belts to having to have insurance to having to be registered for them.
But that doesn't, Piers,
no. Speed limit.
Not someone driving a car into
No, but here's my point. My point was that his point was, in this very interesting column, was that there were a series of regulations were brought in, and the combined effect was that the mortality rate from car deaths decreased.
But we're talking about separate things.
I know, but hang on, but you raise cars. They decreased by 95%. And it was a very interesting piece, which is, why don't you just regulate guns like you did cars?
There are millions, tens of millions of gun owners in America who wouldn't dream of doing a mass shooting.
Oh my God. So he just absolutely dissected her point in no uncertain terms and was like, here's why the car thing is absurd. You do regulate cars. When you did regulate cars, you reduced the fatalities by like 95%. So why not just regulate guns in the same way you regulate cars? In other words, he's not even saying ban guns, which, by the way, he's British. He might actually have that stance in terms of what he wants for his own country. I'm not exactly sure. But he's saying, yeah, I get it. U.S., they have the Second Amendment. You're going to have guns. But why not have a system that makes more sense so that you regulate it, keep the guns out of the hands of criminals. Make it so there's a permitting process and a testing process, which is reasonable. Try to only have certain kinds of firearms, which even in a worst case scenario situation could do limited damage. That's the idea of like banning high capacity magazines. He absolutely dissected and destroyed her point to her face, and it's water off a duck's ass. It's like he said nothing. Yeah, anyway. God, Kari Lake is so frustrating. She is such a hack. By the way, back in the day, she used to be an Obama supporter. Now she's a Trump supporter. She seems to be one of these people, right? Finger in the wind. How can I get more popular? What wave can I ride?
Why don't you just regulate guns like you did cars?
There are millions, tens of millions of gun owners in America who wouldn't dream of doing a mass shooting. They're legal. They own their guns legally. And we have a Second Amendment. It's a God-given right. It's in our Constitution.
Do you think the founding fathers, would they have been comfortable, Kari? Would the founding fathers have been comfortable watching this absolutely never-ending series of mass shootings? Would they have thought that was what they meant by the Second Amendment? Or would they have looked to perhaps to tailor it to modern times?
The founding fathers would have never been okay with what they're seeing right now, which is tyranny on our land once again. And the Second Amendment was put in place. We already pushed back the tyrants once, and we didn't give up. We clung to our guns.
Who's the tyranny from?
The tyranny was from the monarchy.
But now.
Back. And now we're seeing an overreaching government. We're seeing a lying media, lying to us, taking our livelihoods away with COVID restrictions and imposing all of that on our children and on our families and on our education. And we don't want to have to throw back the tyrants again, but they put that in place to prevent us from having to do that, to protect us.
That's absolutely not why the Second Amendment was put in place. That is totally revisionist history right there. First of all, let's be clear. In the Second Amendment, it has the word regulated. So the idea you can't regulate guns is preposterous. It says, a well-regulated militia necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's Second Amendment. It has the word regulated in it. That's the first point. The second point is, back then, all they had was like fucking muskets. Okay, they took like 5 minutes to reload, and they were incredibly inaccurate. You think they could have foresaw the type of weaponry that we have today? Absolutely not. And then, third of all, there's debate about this among historians. Tom Hartman points this out all the time, that one of the things he says is that when they talk about a well-regulated militia having the right to bear arms, actually what they were referring to was slave patrols in the state of Virginia, because Virginia was a majority slave state. And the idea was, hey, if they escape to the north, we don't want them to be free. So we have a right to have slave patrols that are armed to prevent our slaves, our property, from going north and gaining their freedom. That's one of the things. The other thing I've read is that it was about standing armies, that they knew standing armies are always going to be a threat to the stability and security of a government. In other words, we fear coups if there's a standing army. So the idea was, we're going to disband the army when they come back here, when they're, on our home turf. But you're going to be allowed to keep your guns. That was sort of like the compromise. And so I've read different things about the purpose of the Second Amendment. But one of the things that for sure is revisionist history is this idea that, like, oh, they wanted to allow people to overthrow the government if the government gets too tyrannical. That is total right-wing mythology that's been repeated ad nauseum, ad infinitum, that it's just taken as an article of faith that, well, of course that's the reason why they allow the guns. No, it is not even close.
I will tell you this as a mother. I'm horrified to see anybody hurt, but I don't know, you haven't been on the streets of America lately.
Oh, I have, yeah.
The crime is out of control.
I've seen it.
It's not safe to walk down these Democrat-controlled cities.
By the way, I'm not making...
No. The murder, you can be raped and murdered on the subway.
I'm not, by the way, I'm not
I'll
making...
tell you what.
Okay, this is hilarious, because now she's doing a whole, bro, we got to be tough on crime. There's so much crime. We got to be tough on crime. And by the way, let everybody have guns. Wait, what? Those things are contradictory. You have to pick one. Either I'm tough on crime, I'm law and order, and that's why I want to regulate the guns to keep them out of the hands of the criminals, bro. That's the actual tough on crime position. She's simultaneously saying, I'm tough on crime, while also saying, and I want anybody and everybody to have guns with no regulations whatsoever. That does not fit. That does not work. And she's smart enough to know that. She's smart enough to know that.
Let me just on that point. My thought.
Okay.
I am a much better mother that I have firearms and can protect my family.
It is statistically much more likely, just by virtue of the fact that you have a firearm in your house, that somebody will die as a result of that firearm. So in other words, there's this illusion of, oh, this helps me to defend myself. No, statistically speaking, it actually makes it more likely somebody in your family will get shot. Now listen, that doesn't mean, I'm not arguing you ban anybody and everybody from having guns. You have the right to assess that danger on your own and determine whether or not you want to own a gun. But the facts are the facts, and they speak for themselves. So this is a canard of an argument. It's not a good argument at all.
Protect my family. You call 911 right now, you can't get someone to show up at your house, Piers, and there's crime and violence happening on our streets, and we need to protect our own families.
Okay, but here's my question for you. I don't dispute anything you've just said. What I would say is this. Something has to be done. We can agree on this, right? A Fox News poll revealed that 87% of Americans back stricter background checks.
Look at those numbers. This is a Fox poll. 87% want universal background checks. 81% want to enforce existing gun laws. 81% want legal age to be 21 to buy guns. Because in some places, I think it's like 18. It might even be like 16 in some places. 80% says require mental health checks. These are good reforms. These are good reforms that would definitely help keep people safer. Now, it wouldn't be a panacea, but you would definitely see a reduction in the number of gun deaths, maybe by as many as 10,000 or 20,000 people per year. Flag people, danger to self. So that's like red flag laws. 80% support that. 30-day waiting period, 77%. Again, Fox News poll. This is one of those issues where people don't realize, even a lot of Republicans, even a lot of like NRA supporters are like, well, I love guns and I'm for the Second Amendment, but of course I want these basic things. And Kari Lake's like, no, wait for it.
To buy a gun should be raised to 21. 80% agreed that anyone who buys a gun should go for a mental health assessment. 80% want police to take guns from people considered a danger to themselves. 77% want a 30-day waiting off period for all gun purchases.
Okay, that doesn't surprise me because this is
would you support those?
Fox News is a globalist network.
Look, this is what conspiracy brain people do. This is what they do. Evidence, facts, data, numbers, meh. You're a globalist. This is from globalists. So in other words, you dispute the source whenever you get information that conflicts with your own narrative. It doesn't matter. You could give her any. You could have said Newsmax did the poll or One American News did the poll, and she would find a way to weasel out of it and say, well, actually, there's an owner at Newsmax who Soros funded or something, and that's why you got this. This is bogus. So in other words, it's never honestly engaging with the information, ever. It's always like some reason to dismiss all of the information out of hand. And this is also a lot of what we see with the COVID conspiracy stuff as well. It's the same process. You could cite as many studies as you want, as much data as you want, but if they just say, hey, the source of the data I don't buy, then it's like, well, where do you go from there? Where do you go? There's nowhere you can go because they're just going to reject no matter what you give them. They're going to say, I reject that out of hand. It's really frustrating and it's really dishonest.
Want to make sure
Fox News is watched by a lot of gun owners.
Fox News is a globalist network run by globalists who want to bring down our Constitution.
She said Fox News wants to bring down our Constitution. You know who literally said he wants to, quote, suspend the Constitution? Donald Trump. And you lick his taint on a daily basis, and you're desperately trying to become his VP. Everybody can see it, Kari. Everybody can see it. Well, look, here's my prediction. It's a bold prediction. We'll see what happens. But my guess is it's not going to be Kari Lake, who's Donald Trump's VP. You want to know why? She's really charismatic, and he doesn't want anybody who can potentially outshine him because he will get jealous. So her own charisma is getting in her way. He's not going to pick you. You know who he's probably going to pick? Kristi Noem, the governor of, I forget if it's North Dakota or South Dakota, but she's a governor of one of the Dakotas. And she is young, she's good looking, and she has the personality of watching paint dry. And she's totally sycophantic to Trump, which is his #1 criteria. So you ain't getting picked. You're a massive pick-me, but you ain't getting picked. I love this point so much. Oh, my, Fox News wants to suspend the Constitution. Even though the guy who I love and defend every single day literally said, we need to suspend the Constitution because I lost the last election and I'm going to lie and act like I didn't. So in order for me to get back in office, if we have to suspend the Constitution, let's do it. Let's suspend the Constitution. What a shameless hack. Holy shit.
Everybody who took part in that independent poll is a globalist.
No, but Fox News is a globalist network. Let's just face it. We all know the truth here.
I don't think
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't even address the fact that the numbers are what the numbers are. I guess she's saying they totally made it up. All of that's totally made up. It's unbelievable. Because we could pick a poll from any of a number of different places, and they all say the same thing. And the numbers have moved consistently more in the pro-gun reform direction over the past 5 years, 10 years. And she would dismiss all of it out of hand.
Down our Constitution and take away our Second
Amendment. So everybody who took part in that independent poll is a globalist.
No, but Fox News is a globalist network. Let's just face it. We all know the truth here.
I don't think Fox News is a globalist network.
It doesn't matter.
It's the biggest conservative network in the country.
Well, they fired Tucker Carlson.
Most of it.
Well, then, geez, I guess they're not conservative anymore. Are you kidding me? What a joke. Again, her main beef with Fox News, let's understand this very clearly, is that they didn't go all in with election denialism to make Trump president, even though he lost. And they also didn't go all in with election denialism to make her governor of Arizona. That's her main beef. So it's all personal, petty stuff. And God, it's so disingenuous. And this is dangerous. Look, guys, the bottom line is this is not a line we've ever crossed previously. Previously, it was like, look, the election happened. If you lose, you lose. You concede gracefully, you move on. Like, the peaceful transfer of power is a big deal. We took it for granted. Well, now we have a bunch of idiots who are like, I would like to not have a peaceful transfer of power, and if I ever lose, I'm just going to say I win. It's unbelievable.
I'm not getting to that, but most of its viewers, I suspect, would have a pro-gun view, and yet 80% of them want all these new measures brought in. Would you not agree with any of them?
If you pass any of those and make those laws, they're unconstitutional.
Oh my God. Oh my God. She thinks universal background checks are unconstitutional. Oh my God. She thinks having an age limit for guns is unconstitutional. Oh my God. That is absolutely brain dead. Why not stretch it to its logical conclusion? Why not say, hey, man, you want to own a tank? That should be perfectly legal and allowed because of the Second Amendment. You want to own nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, biological weapons, by all means. Right? Are you seriously going to make the argument that there are literally no gun regulations that are acceptable under the Second Amendment, even though the Second Amendment does not say that at all? A well-regulated militia necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Are you going to make the argument that literally means you can't have universal background checks or a ban on high-capacity magazines or red flag laws? This is psycho stuff.
The Constitution is not going anywhere.
I understand that. Would you not bring in any new regulations?
No.
Look, I have to say, this is deeply unpopular. Everything she's saying here, she is so in her little right-wing sycophant bubble with the other Trump supporters. She is part of the cult, and that shows. And that shows because she thinks like, I'm speaking for the silent majority in America. No, you're not. You're speaking for the 25% of absolute psychos who are basically in a fundamentalist religion, who a poll just showed the other week. The people who are still on Trump's nuts, they trust him over literally anybody else in their lives. Their mom, their dad, their daughter, their son, their cousin, their brother, their sister, religious leaders, other people, any institutions. They trust him over anybody. Tell me that is not quintessential cult-like activity. And she really seems to believe, like, no, I'm just spitting the truth. No, you are deranged and deluded, and you're broadcasting it to the world.
Second Amendment, our constitutional rights, just like I don't change the First Amendment.
You don't even want background checks?
I don't want to change our Constitution.
Kari, not even background checks?
Again, I don't want to change our Constitution, unless, of course, Trump is saying suspend the Constitution, in which case I will still support him 100%. It's also dishonest. It's also disingenuous. I hate it. I think Piers is doing a great job here, actually being persistent. Because he's continuing to follow up with the same question, like, really? None of these things? Not even a universal background check? Nothing. Nothing at all? Nothing even, not even a little bit? Nothing. And it really just rips the mask off of who she is and what she's in favor of.
87% of Americans want background checks.
Our Second Amendment is protecting us. Our Second Amendment allows me to protect my family. It allows me to protect my children. And right now, we're living in a very dangerous place. I'm sure the streets of London aren't safe either, but the streets of America, you go to Portland, you go to San Francisco, LA, Phoenix, and you wouldn't dare walk down the street at night, even in the middle of broad daylight, and feel safe. You're not safe in the streets.
Again, gun laws would make everybody safer. You can't do the I'm the law and order person, I'm tough on crime, but also let's be absolutely lenient and lax on any gun reform whatsoever. It is a fact that the gun reform would reduce gun crimes from all the evidence all around the world in all the countries that have stricter gun reform. So this is incoherent. And look, she's coasting on her charisma, but like, that can only get you so far when you're a total and utter freak like she is. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.